Well, hello everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Roof and Contractor, Walls and Ceilings, and Building Enclosure. And thank you so much for joining us. Whether you are listening on podcast or watching on video, you're going to be really happy you took the time to listen in today. I'm here with Hannah Beloli, the associate editor of Walls and Ceilings, and we are so honored to be talking today with two incredible women from the Public Relations Society of America, the CEO, Linda Thomas Brooks, and Karen Mateo, the Chief Communications Officer. Linda and Karen, thank you so much for joining us, and we're really excited to talk to you.
Thanks, Jill and Hannah, for inviting us. It's great, and we love to talk about this topic and see how we can help all kinds of professionals help their businesses through more open and transparent PR dialogue with their constituencies. So we're happy to be here.
Yeah, we're very much looking forward to the conversation. I've been doing communications and public relations for many, many years, so hoping we can share some great information for your audience.
Great. Well, we're really happy to have you both here with us today. So to start off, for the people that don't really know what PRSA is, what it's all about, why don't you tell us a little bit about it, tell us the importance of it, and also tell us the importance of PR today. And we can start with Linda and then bounce over to Karen.
Great. So yeah, and I'm the new kid, so I'll kick off, and then Karen can give you the real story. She's been with PRSA a little bit longer than I have. I came in just in January as a CEO. So PRSA is a trade association, professional trade association for practitioners of public relations and marketing communications, largely in the US, but we do have international members as well. And we also have student members, so college students who are studying the craft. So we have about 30,000 members, across the country, people who have their own firms, people who are part of professional service organizations, big PR companies, people who do corporate communications in companies from large to small. So we have a wide variety of practitioners, and we're the trade association that provides professional development, forums for conversations. This industry is really, really rapidly changing. And so we have sort of constant dialogues with our members about how they can do their work better, how they can serve their clients better. Karen, what else do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you talk about sort of why public relations is so important today, I mean, there's so many ways for companies to talk about their brand and the products that they sell or the services they provide. And having a good strategy around how you're going to speak to your audiences is really important these days. And there's so much competition out there, and there's a wealth of information and competing for people's time. So I think looking at what we do as communications professionals is just a really important time, with a lot of opportunities to speak to people who may not be familiar with your brand or your company or what it is that you do. So there's a lot of opportunities out there that I think public relations can really take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. And so how does PRSA work? Do you guys have resources available for somebody who's looking for a public relations specialist to join their team, or do they usually come to you for some background on what they need to do and then they take it from there on their own?
So for our members, we have resources that help them do their job better and stay up to date with learning and certification programs, et cetera. For folks outside who might be looking to hire PR professionals, we do have and are actually in the midst of revamping a new Find a Firm capability where people can come in and use that as a way to get connected to practitioners. Could be freelancers, could be firms that they can use for their own, to help in their own businesses.
Mm-hmm. Karen, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in addition to, so the services that Linda mentioned, right? I mean, there's lots of other ways to find PR people out there. We look at it from the membership standpoint. And so, we always look for opportunities to expose our people, but, looking at places like LinkedIn or,
Mm-hmm.
other social media platforms, you can see, who's kind of working in the profession that might be relevant to your industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add too that our PRSA maintains a professional certification, which is an APR designation that professionals have after their name, which shows that they have a number of years in the business, as well as have been through a very rigorous education and certification program. So they have to do learning, they have to submit practice plans, they have to get tested. So it's a very serious certification. Once those people are certified, they have to continue to do professional education to continue to use that designation. So when people are looking for practitioners, if they see that APR after their name, it's a little bit like if you were in accounting, maybe you would say it's a CPA-like designation. That just tells you something about the professionalism with which these people are practicing.
Well, that sounds like an exciting resource to be able to be a small business and have a place to go to be like how to find a PR person. So yeah, as you get more details on that and that gets updated, let us know. We would love to push that out to the industries.
Great.
So, Linda and Karen, what about those companies? And we'll talk specifically contracting companies right now. What about those companies who don't really have the resources to hire a PR specialist at this time? Do you have any insights or tips or little tidbits that you can tell us?
Yeah, and I think Karen has been a practitioner for a long time, so she can jump in here too. I mean, I think there are lots of firms or freelancers or sort of small scale practitioners that you could hire on some sort of fractional basis. So just like you would hire them, any sort of other person to do work as part of your firm, you need a woodworker, you need a tile person. You don't need them full time. You're going to bring them in for a particular job. There are PR people who would work that way as well. I would say the difference is with PR practitioners, even if it's a freelancer, you need somebody to come in, not just to, tackle a specific tactic, but to work with you on a plan. So they need to understand, your firm, your constituents, who are your clients, what is your sort of role in the ecosystem, and then help you build a plan for that. And a skilled PR practitioner is going to bring lots of resources and lots of strategy work to bear. It's really, I think, easy for people to see social media as being a key place right now, and where messages get shared, and that's certainly true, but you don't want to limit yourself to that. So just because somebody knows how to do a post on Facebook or Facebook Marketplace doesn't mean they're really going to drive the strategy that makes sense for you.
Yeah.
So I think looking for somebody who can bring that holistic sort of strategic picture to help grow your business is what folks should be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there's some things that if you that a business owner can do on their own, but when you're talking about sort of brand messaging and how you're speaking to to your publics, right? There's a lot of risks involved in that, especially these days when everything is so scrutinized and people are really trying to delve into that messaging, and so I think that's where a PR practitioner can be really helpful to sort of anticipate some of that, what may resonate, what may not, where there could be risks, and so forth. So I think there's some probably small things that business owners are already doing that I would say fall under the public relations umbrella. But if you're really sort of looking to take it to that next level, that sort of someone with that strategic mind who can, look wider at your business and anticipate where the opportunities are, either from a media relations standpoint or even amplification on social media. There's lots of different ways to tell your own story as well. And that's where someone with a communications background can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. So once a PR strategist is added to help a company out, then the PR strategist would take a look at the entire company and they would decide the best strategy for that company.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, these things kind of work hand in hand, right? So sometimes where a business comes out with like a completely fully baked strategy, and then the communications person comes in to sort of layer on top of that, and they may look at some things differently and say, well, there seems to be more of an opportunity here, or this is kind of what the trends are looking like, or this is what I'm seeing in the media, and this is where maybe some of the narrative is being driven. And so maybe we want to think a little bit differently about how we approach something. It's really, making sure that that person's involved in the conversation as early as possible. It's always much more of a challenge when, you bring the communications person in after your strategy is all set, and then you're just looking for someone, just to tell that story, when there may be other ways to make that story even better. And so we like to always say that, to have the communications person with the seat at the table, not to necessarily dictate your strategy, but just to sort of say, here's where there may be some more opportunity, or there's going to be less opportunity here.
I think there's a very sort of similar line probably between what some of your what your audience does for a living and how they think about a PR person. So if I was going to hire an architect, I would want to hire them for their expertise and their knowledge and their education. I shouldn't dictate when they come out. I shouldn't dictate like, this is what I want and this is how you think you should build it, and go draw it for me, right? You need to get the whole depth of their experience. It's a very similar thing with a PR professional, right? They have the education, the background, the training. Don't give them, a plan and say, go draw it for me, right? Don't tell them how to do those tactics, but use their expertise to help them draw the plan that is right for your business.
Yeah. So what are some different PR models of engagement that someone might take a step towards? We can start with Karen and then bounce to Linda.
Yeah, I mean, I think at its most basic, right? Like, you're talking about a company website, you're talking about a presence on social media, you're talking about maybe dealing with local TV and radio and newspapers in your market. If you're a bigger brand with more reach, is there a more national or regional perspective that you're looking at? I think that there used to be public relations was more just media relations, and it was just working with the press on having them tell your story for you. And over the years, the profession has really evolved to help companies tell their stories outside of those earned media channels. So there's lots of different ways that you can tell your story that I would say fall under that public relations, and whether that's review sites, which I'm sure a lot of your audience here today is already using some of those things, but those are really some basic tools. And then there's some, obviously bigger strategies where you're talking about more national media or broadcast. Can you look at podcasts, or those, people in your market or industry who are covering the business. And so I think that you can expand that pretty wide, but you can make a real impact even just locally in your community if you sort of tap into some of those resources.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think that that part of PR too is helping measure the impact of those things, right? So I'm sure, for small or mid-sized businesses, I'm sure they're getting pitched constantly on, involvement in community events, right? Should I put my logo on the back of the, Little League shirt? Should I, sponsor a community event or parade or something? And those are all wonderful things to do. Some of those are going to have more immediate payout than others. So having professionals who can look at sort of what is the potential audience reach, what are the metrics, what are the business attributes that you can drive into those involvements, so that they become true investments in growing your business and not just a contribution that you're making.
Yeah, definitely. And so what I've been noticing in this industry, and something Jill and I have been talking about, is that it seems that contractors tend to usually get the short end of the stick. They have this negative connotation around them, like, oh man, those darn contractors are coming again. They're going to get mud in my house. They're going to be loud. So is this something that they can combat with PR? And I guess, what can contractors do from a PR perspective to make themselves shine so people are excited when their contractors are coming?
Karen, you need to defend your brother here, right?
Yeah, look, I think in any profession, right, there's good and bad PR people, there's ethical and unethical PR people. And I would say the same for for your industry as well. And I think it's always just making and taking whatever opportunities you can to refute that, right? So how is it that you're promoting your business with your clients, right? What does that customer service look like? The contracting business is a lot of word of mouth, right? So, you can sort of help to start change that reputation as the level of your customer service, right? And I think that in any business, you're going to find some people who are, some bad apples, or who walked away from a job and, left you high and dry, or they're just right. And so I think that it's reminding people that not all contractors are the same, right? This is what, my ethical standards are. This is my promise to you, right? And sort of taking every opportunity to reinforce that you can, so people understand that, yeah, maybe you had a bad experience, but my experience has not been that way. And these are the people that I work with and trust and respect. And I think that's just, sometimes that just takes a little bit of time to build that. And then I think it's also using some of those other PR channels just to make sure that you're out there telling your story and evangelizing your business in a really positive way, and testimonials from your customers, that stuff. I think when people are looking for a service provider like that, those sort of reviews and testimonials are really what can, be the make or break in someone deciding to work with you or not.
Yeah.
For PRSA, for our members, we have a code of ethics. And when you become a member, you sign up to operate by that code of ethics. And so some of your folks probably have that, if it's not from an industry standards, their company, right? And talking about those things, promoting it, like, we're a family business, and this is our, you might call it your code or your values, or this is how, we determine how we're going to do business. I think wearing those things like on your sleeve and talking about that, talking about how important that is, and what do you do, if that ever, if there's a problem with that, right? What is your sort of fallback? How are you making those decisions? I think those are important things to share. The thing about social media is that other people are sharing too, right? So you may choose not to say something, but if somebody has a bad experience with you, they're probably sharing it. And those bad experiences travel really, really, really fast in the world of social media. So in some cases, you can be proactive to talk about your ethics, your behavior, your company standards. In some cases, you may have to be reactive, right, to a specific situation. But it's better to address that than to let those things linger. I think the other thing that's different about your businesses is that it feels very personal, right? I could hire another kind of professional, whatever it is, a dentist. I'd go to the dentist's office, right? But your contractors are in my home, or in my place of business, or in some place I care about. So every element of that interaction feels very, very personal, because you're in my world for an hour or a day, or sometimes an extended period of time. So talking about how you care for my environment, and what your code of ethics is, how you're going to operate, whether that's something as simple as, putting the protective, footwear on so that you're not tracking mud through my house, or whatever it is, caring for my pets, watching out for, my kids who are in the house. I mean, those are all important elements, because essentially I'm going to be living with you for a while.
Right.
And I think the more of that, like, standards that you can talk about yourself, like Linda said, proactively, right? Like, if you have a website, what are those standards? What makes you different than maybe some other contractor that someone is speaking to? That can be the difference between hiring you or someone else, right? And so, I think that there's lots of different ways that you can do that. And whether that's through your website, or your salespeople, or anyone that's out there speaking for you on your behalf, right? What are those standards that you want them to present, and what does that look like? Even from just like a branding and marketing standpoint, that will really help set your business apart from someone else's.
Definitely. So, what do you think that contractors and business owners need to be thinking about in regards to PR during COVID? Is it more what you said, you want them to talk about their ethics and their values? Hey, we're contractors, we're going to keep you safe when we come into your homes. Or is it more on the social media side of things? And Linda, we can start with you and then move to Karen.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the standards around, sort of health and safety and in COVID times are changing so rapidly. It's hard to stay on top of
Right.
that. So, I don't know if that's, how aggressively you want to make a lot of public statements because those have to change all the time. I mean, I think just saying outright, we're staying on top of health and safety standards. We're going to do our best to keep you safe, to keep ourselves safe. I think, your employees are really the front line on that, right? When they show up, when they ring my doorbell, if they have a mask on, I feel a lot better about that.
Mhm.
Maybe if they're working and they're not around people, they can take it off later, but that first interaction is so important. And, I think just, again, sharing that, we're staying on top of whatever the standards are. We're going to go with the most cautious approach. And that's really sort of all we can do in this time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also, as we're just seeing, a lot of the mask mandates being lifted, right? There's still a large percentage of people who are not comfortable with that, right? And
Mhm.
so I think it's reassuring your customers that, we want to work with you here on this, right? We want to do what makes you comfortable. And so if, even if we're all vaccinated, you still want us to wear masks, like we're happy to do that, right? So I think that there's been so much controversy in politics over, how to stay safe during COVID. But I think it's really a lot about that personal choice. And I think on the flip side of that too, right, is that, your employees or you yourself as a business owner, right, what is going to make you feel safe and comfortable, right? And so
Mhm.
if that means that you're wearing a mask, whether the homeowner requires it or not, like that you have to be able to do that. And so I think it's sort of respecting people's emotions on this as well right now, as the science is constantly evolving and the guidance keeps changing.
Mhm. Yeah, so as we're wrapping things up, I have a pretty simple question, but I'm sure there's a million ways that you both can answer this. How can PR change a company? And we can start with Linda and then go to Karen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's making sure that you're not, hiding your light under a bushel to, bushel basket, to sort of use the sort of proverbial, visual for that. But you can do all things right as a company. You can have the right standards, you can have the right ethics. But if people in your world, in your possible audience, don't know about that, you're not going to have the growth, you're not going to reap the benefits of that. So it's
Mhm.
really sort of your presence to the world to say, this is who we are, this is what we're about, this is how we operate as a company, and this is how we can help you, right? Making that message about yourself as a company, but also about what you can do and how you can service people and how you're putting those things together. So I think it's really just taking everything about your company and making it, open and transparent and available for people to see and hear and understand, and helping them think through how that could be, helpful to their life.
Mhm.
And I think, to sort of look at the flip side of that too, right? Like every business faced a crisis in 2020. Nobody was prepared for that,
Right.
right? And part of what falls under communications, media relations strategist, right, is that crisis communications, and it's
Mhm.
helping your business weather those storms when they come, but it's also, the long-term thinking, to prepare that those crises don't hit your business, right? And so I think, businesses really struggled with that last year on how to sort of speak about COVID, how to
Mhm.
manage their business, how to talk to their employees and to their customers. And I think communications played a large role in sort of helping businesses shepherd through some of those challenges. And so I think when you look at, how can this benefit your organization, I think some of it is just that long-term thinking, sort of being 3 steps ahead and saying like, hey, if this were to happen, what would we do? And are we prepared for that? and how would we message around that? And also taking, an opportunity to insert yourself into the conversation, right? When these things are happening, how can we raise our voice to say what we're doing in this situation? And I think that's, all things that communications professionals are thinking about day in and day out when they work with a brand. So.
Yeah. And COVID, I think, as I don't think anybody wants to go through that year again, but I think it also presented some really interesting opportunities for folks in your world. And if you pay attention to the popular press, what you see is, especially for residential work, everybody wants their house to look better. We're in it a lot more than we used to be, right? I don't get to go to the office every day I'm here. So I wanted to, be functionally improved and to look nicer and all of that. And I know that has presented both opportunities and challenges, right? For a lot of contractors who, didn't have the staff or had trouble getting access to the materials that you need. So I think helping think through the communication strategies of being transparent with people, right? Because if you can't meet a timeline because you don't have access to the material, or there's a delay in getting certain things, that's a really legitimate thing, but that communication is so key, right? You don't want to leave people hanging, and you want them to completely understand that. So I think just thinking through some sort of scenario, some what ifs, how would we talk about it in this situation or that situation, will help your business and help your customer satisfaction.
One other thing that both of you had mentioned were review sites. And we all know that, especially with everybody paying so much more attention to social media, as we've all been on lockdown, and thankfully we're so happy things are opening back up. But what would you say would be like the top 2 or 3 things that any business owner should do if they have a negative review on a review site? What's the best way to handle that?
Yeah, I think, really quickly responding in an open way, but not engaging. Like, if Karen is leaving a negative review or something I said, you don't want a long back and forth that's publicly available, like between Karen and I doing he said, she said thing, right? So what you want people to see is that you as a company care, know about the review, care, and are responding. So I think a simple response that says, hey, Karen, I'm so sorry to hear about this. I'm going to reach out to you directly so that we can figure out how to make it right. Right. And she may still be unhappy and she may still post something, but I think it just takes some of the angst and the ire out of the situation.
Yeah. And I think it shows that, you're actually paying attention, right? And so, that there is someone that's engaging, that has that level of customer service, right? There's lots of people who have a website and they just have it because it's a good place to put their phone number, right? But there's not really any engagement on it. So I think that there are opportunities there to create that two-way dialogue that you really want. And, you can do that on places like Instagram, which is probably a great place for contractors to show their work, right? And so I think when you look at comments, there will be those that you want to engage in, and you may make a decision that someone that you don't want to respond to something for whatever reason, they're using foul language, or they're it's just that there may be decisions where where it doesn't make sense to do that engagement. But Linda's right, no one ever wins in that back and forth on any of these sites, whether they're a review site or a social media site. It's better to just kind of address it and take it offline if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, something like Instagram is it's sort of made for this world, right? I mean, I did a lot of work with consumer design and architecture magazines for a long time. And that's, it's that sort of that photographic appeal, right? I mean, I want to live vicariously. I want to see these beautiful homes. I want to get ideas. So whether you post that photography in print somewhere or on Instagram, sort of showcasing the beauty of the work that you do and the transformative effect that it has, right? My old place looked like this, and this is how my new place looks like. I can, as a consumer, I can easily put myself in that situation and say, man, I would love to be standing in that, in that new kitchen or in that amazing front porch, or, looking at sort of the before and after color palette and what that does. So I think that the more you can bring that work to life in multiple channels, the better off you'll be, and the more consumer engagement possibilities you'll have.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing we've seen, or at least I've seen a lot of, like everyone has become a DIY expert during COVID, right? Like, so, to be able to see, the professional craftsman, right? And what does that look like? There's even the best DIYers, right? Don't match the skills and ability of someone trained in that profession for many, many years. And I think being able to show that work and the value that you bring to that, to a project is really important. And that's where you can get homeowners to comment and like and share those things, because now they're being featured on social media. So I think that's a really great opportunity for contractors and architects right now.
Oh yeah, I think everyone got drawn into some sort of series through COVID.
Oh yeah.
Whether it was Tiger King for my 12-year-old, it was the home edit. And so now it's all about like, hey,
right,
look at all these things you can do, and talk about a great PR program right there. So let's just do a DIY show like you're saying. But boy, they make it look great, don't they?
Yeah.
And not as easy as it is, right?
No,
And I think,
yeah.
people that do like attempt to do their own DIY and they have a DIY fail, right? Who are they going to call to fix that? Right?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm looking for my local contractor to, sort of bail me out and realize my vision of what I really wanted this to be. So,
Interesting times. Well, any final statements? That's kind of is what we have. I think that we've got some great things to share with contractors and architects.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenges that your folks are going through are the same challenges that some of our practitioners have, which is,
Sure.
in a DIY world, everybody wants to sort of, tackle some pieces and parts of this themselves. And in the same way that, that you want people to rely on professional architects and contractors to do these really important jobs, I think there's a clear analogy with having PR people help with your strategy and your tactics and your execution, and really relying on the professionals to help you grow your business, your employee satisfaction, and your customer satisfaction through those channels.
I'm so glad you said that, because it's so true. Everybody needs to take some time with a professional PR person and have them take a look at their business, which is definitely why we wanted to get you guys on camera today, so we could share some of those great insights. And if anybody has any questions about PRSA, Linda, can you tell us, how do people get in touch with you or Karen?
Yeah, so our site is prsa.org. And you can reach us through that site. There's a contact form there, and definitely reach out, and we can also help you with the find a firm tactics if you're looking for a PR firm, and help you get connected to people inside the industry.
And I would also suggest to follow us on social media. We give a lot of tips and insight for communicators, and that other businesses can pick up as well if you're not working with someone in the profession, right? I think that there's a lot that you can learn through that, and easy things that you can do to help promote your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Linda, like I was mentioned before we started, I noticed, I haven't watched it yet, but I saw that you also did something similar with another industry on exactly the same thing. So it's such an important topic. And thank you again so much for your time.
Thanks for the invitation. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. If anybody has any questions for Hannah or myself, you can reach us at roofingcontractor.com, wconline.com, or buildingenclosureonline.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free e-newsletters, our free e-magazines, which are all digital now. Speaking of some really cool things to be able to see inside buildings, is all the things we can produce now in our e-magazines. It's free to register for our website, so you can always stay up to date on all the great content that we're pushing out, like interviews with the PRSA and Linda and Karen. Because everybody needs these nuggets of information to help them improve their business. So again, stay safe and healthy. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Hey!